because of sci-fi and various games that you could play based on all kinds of, different kinds of computer modeling and such like, different levels of computer intelligence, there's actually kind of this cool thing where, the idea of terraforming. So with a lot of people who are, talking of climate change, and now it's, the climate change, the West Coast emergency climate change. So you'll find, if you look up drought news going back 20, 30 years, all the way back to the 1970s in California, you'll find that there's always been this kind of thing of, well, one of the keys to this issue is that there's this variety of reservoirs around California that had, they were built in the 1930s, sometimes I think parts of them before that, and the way that this entire system was working was really, there was a lot of inefficiencies. There was a lot of people who were trying to get this problem solved. There was a specific governor, Gray Davis, who was just, people thought he was boring. But one of the things is he was really trying to get certain, something going with dealing with the water system of California. And all it was an issue of the system, to the point that once I heard there was a bullet train being planned and the price, and I'm like, okay, I'm presuming they had to have built like the reservoir system or improved on the reservoir system, intertwining it with where this bullet train went, or something like that, because you would think this would be such a logical combination of public works. How green is that? You have you have reservoirs and the water, another system of water transfer alongside of the bullet train, and I'm like thinking, like, then also one of the key things too is that forestation methods, that so if you ever see the way that California will have like its different water, its different reservoirs and such, they don't necessarily sort of keep it sort of almost heavily forested. Some there are, but others, and now I think, yeah. And it's because of different invasive species issues, and so there's 1,000 rules that keep one from putting shade trees over water. I know that would sound silly, but I'm not kidding. There's like 20, 40 different rules, and you can't put shade trees over water in California, so the water evaporates more easily. And so there wasn't this idea of sort of terraforming, which is really this was the problem I kept having, is you have these specialists who understand this environmental stuff. Somehow they're not doing. And then when I started to learn about how forests, that most of these people, a lot of the cutting of forests is purchased, they purchased it. They purchased the wood or leased the land for a period of time. I'm like, well, so they handed somebody money. So this was an asset of some entity. Yeah, I'm sorry, you can't get that mad about this. And then there's this part of me like, why aren't you planting trees? So then, because then I see it in Eugene, they plant trees. They actively plant trees. They have there's a group of volunteers. They probably are given some money for city beautification, kind of stuff. But they do the work. They actually make sure there's shade trees all over the city, and that these various trees aren't growing into the power lines and such like. And it's magnificent. And I was like, yeah, that's what it's about, right? But it's not, that's not as common as people respond. If you pay them, people respond. People respond to money. And so one of the issues I started to think about was this is another, if you are in the long run, if you're some company and you know that you're going to require mostly like electricity, technically, you really do want to live someplace that has hydropower. Then there's another thing. If you're a company that in any way has to manufacture or you need heavy equipment, you need hydropower, you need water power, such as some kind of river that flows inland from the sea, or a bay that you could have docks at, that you could have your stuff land at. Now California has mucked that up enough that, and this is probably going to start becoming a problem also for the Pacific Northwest. Just not allowing water power to do what it needs to do for commerce. That's my theory. And also there's the problem of people are buying less stuff everywhere in the civilized world. So it's just a general downturn in consumer economics. So that's also its own problem, is that there's going to be a competition for water power, and all the different forms of it, not just being able to have the power of electrical generation or using water power to have recreational or commercial water vehicles. Like some places, the Midwest is going to rule that in a way, because they still have the rivers. Yeah, so I just was thinking about that, because this is an issue where a lot of people I don't think people really are putting together, because I'm seeing the confidence of, it turns out there was this graph of, in Democratic enclaves, there's much more confidence in the economy. And there's this part of my mind that I'm like, and you'll see there'll be some videos I'll load up that I'm like, this is not a crowded downtown. Compared to what's been invested in it, this is not a crowded enough downtown. And so that's now something that's starting to really worry me. It's are the only people who are going to be left here are us old folks, all the cool kids can end up Florida and Texas and places like Kentucky and Oklahoma or something like that. Georgia or whatever, I don't know. But I'm just mulling a lot of stuff over, because the future belongs to those who are prepared. So it's this thing of like, well, I mean, if people think that things are going to get better, I'm not exactly sure how they see that. Well, I guess we'll see. All right, later.